Alright, so today I wanted to make a video on a kind of an interesting topic. Now, the story in and of itself isn't that interesting, but the underlying ramifications are what is really interesting behind this story, and it's just kind of proof of something that, I, as well as many others, have been saying for a long time. So, this is out of Global News titled Hate-Filled Pro-White Instagram Account Connected to Edmonton School Condemned by Officials. And it goes on to say the Edmonton Public School Board is condemning a White Alliance student group connected to Strathcona High School that appeared on social media over the weekend. The Scona White Student Alliance Instagram page made its first post on February 14th, where it announced that White Lives Matter, a phrase that has been tied to white nationalism and hate groups. Um, Strathcona High School uh, has seen increasingly anti-white rather than pro-black for the few months. The post said, "We are all equal and race should be ignored. We must judge each other by our actions and not by the color of our skin." Um, so the post basically said, I mean, I don't know why we didn't just read the whole post. White Lives Matter. Strathcona High School has been increasingly anti-white rather than pro-black for the past few months. We have been forced to sit in our classes and listen to some clowns ranting how terrible and racist are all whites. Enough is enough. Us students don't wish to be thought any of that social justice rubbish. We just want to be treated equally and respected. Black people shouldn't be treated superior than white people, nor the other way around. We are all equal and race should be ignored. We must judge each other by our actions, not by the color of our skin. Um, Again, so I'm not going to go over the rest of the article because again, it's kind of long actually, so it's already starting to boil my blood a little bit. But um, so the first thing I'm going to say here is that if this is all they said, stuff like this, then we live in an absolutely insane world. Like, if they said something that was legitimately racist that I'm not aware of, again, maybe I'm sure they would have said it by now. Like, if they said something legitimately racist, there's no way that would be the quote that they would quote. So, I would say with probably 99% certainty, because there is definitely a chance I could be wrong, but given they don't actually, the quote they choose to quote is not bad at all, I would assume that this is what they believe. So, the first thing that I would point out too is that this is literally something, I mean, aside from the White Lives Matter part, and aside from the other part, but the end of this point is exactly what MLK said, right? So what these people that are going after this group for, and again, they only had 22 followers too. Like, why, I don't know why it's such a big deal, but um, if they actually cared about racism, they would be supportive of this, right? So I mentioned earlier there's bigger ramifications here. And what are the bigger ramifications here? Well, it's very simple that um, white people cannot advocate on a group level in any way, shape, or form. Every other race can do it and it's perfectly fine, but if whites do it, it makes you a racist, right? So the definition of racist, at least according to these people, not this group's account, but by the people that are mad at these people, is literally what is racist depends upon the color of your skin, right? That if a black person says Black Lives Matter, if a Hispanic person says Hispanic Lives Matter, that isn't racist. But if a white person says White Lives Matter, that is racist, right? And the worst part about this stuff too is that this stuff isn't getting any better. Right? Like, one of the reasons that this social justice madness has gotten so out of control is that most people have ignored it, right? People have been warning that this kind of stuff is going to get more and more out of control for quite a while now. Like, there's people that have been warning about this stuff for over a decade now, and it's not going to get any better. If we allow this stuff to go on, they're just going to move to the next target. What is the next target? It is going to be, I don't know what it's going to be. It's reparations. It's going to be, I don't even want to think about it, because any of the crazy social justice things, that could be one of the things. So again, people really need to understand that this stuff is going to get worse before it gets better, right? And if you think that this is okay, someone saying we are all equal and race should be ignored. We must judge each other by our actions, not by the color of our skin. If you think that that is a outlandish statement, a group of people that believes that, like, what have we come to? Like, this is what we become as a province, as a country, as a society, right? Like, that's what we become. And the worst thing about it is that most people are completely silent on it. And why is that? Is because I think that there's a lot of people that don't understand just how bad this stuff has gotten. And I think the other thing too is that people are so terrified of being called racist that they'll go along with anything. Right? Like, a lot of people probably say, "Well, I can't speak up at work or at school. I'll lose my job. I'll have to drop the class, right? Or I'll fail the class, right?" But the thing people don't understand is that you're going to lose your job anyway if this stuff continues to go on, right? Because if this stuff continues to go on, right? Like, we've already became okay with employers hiring solely based upon race or gender, as long as it's men or white people that are the victims of said policy. We've already justified that as a society. Anyone who's applied to has been applying to jobs over the last year or two, maybe even a little longer, has noticed that, right? Like, go to apply. I mean, just go look at this stuff. Like, go on these major job sites. Like, most of the, especially the bigger corporations, they will ask you, what is your race? What is your gender? Right? Do you have any disabilities? Right? We and they're definitely not answering that because they want to weed out the black people or the women. Right? They would get the pantsuit off them if they did that. Right? And because we've justified discriminating against mainly whites and mainly men, there's nothing we can really do about it, right? Because society has justified that, right? So, um, like I said, the underlying important aspect of this issue is that this stuff's only going to get worse before it gets better, right? And again, like, I don't think people understand just how important this stuff is. We have a group of people who believes we are all equal and race should be ignored. We must judge each other by our actions, not by the color of our skin. People who believe that are considered a hate-filled group. That is 2021, right? That is 2021, right? And this is where we've gone as a society, right? I talk all the time about how I think we're headed down a very dark path as a society, and most people seem to want to just ignore it. Right? People say, "Oh, we got iPhones and the internet today. We're not headed down a dark." You think that's going to prevent this stuff? Right? Like, "Oh, we got heat and running water, like electricity." Or what do you mean we're headed down a dark path? Like, okay, that's what you think, right? And like I always bring up too, like, I'm at the point too to where people who suffer because of this, who refuse to speak up, and who, like another example, like people who support lockdowns and lose their job. I'm not going to shed a tear for them. In fact, I could care less, right? Because we're at the point in society to where if people don't stand up for what's right, they deserve every little bit of negative, any negative ramification that comes their way. They are asking for it, right? And it's like I say too, like the whole "I'm afraid to lose my job" argument. Maybe in some cases, maybe it's legitimate, but most of the time, it's not legitimate. Number one, because more people agree with you than you think. These crazy social justice warrior people, they're not actually that large a percent of the population. I don't even know if they're the majority of the leftists out there, to be quite honest. But because they're so persistent, they get what they want, right? Like if the right, if the center, if they were half as persistent as these people, they would get their way, right? The reason why these people, the reason why the social justice mob woke culture is infesting society is because these people are so persistent. It's not even funny, right? Like there's kind of this stereotype of the more far left socialist types as these lazy people that just want to sit at home and collect, government checks, which is true to a degree. But what people don't tell you is that, okay, well, when you're not working, when you can sit at home all day, when you're a college student, you probably got a lot of free time. I mean, especially if you're not working, you got a lot of free time on your hands, right? You can sit on Facebook and Twitter all day and complain about this stuff. You can write emails and call your local politicians. You can do all this kind of stuff. You can go to your kid's school and complain about this stuff. You can write emails to every teacher and every administrator at these schools, millions of times, right? So that's another very concerning thing, right? Is that one of the other big problems too is that the people that disagree with this most are often the ones that have the least time um, to deal with it, right? So again, that's another really big problem. But again, at the end of the day, I don't see how any possible argument, any possible scenario that someone could come up with to where a group of people that believes in exactly what MLK said, judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, how a group of people that believes that can be crazy. And by default, the people that are opposing them not be crazy. And we know these people are crazy too. We know the social justice warriors are crazy, right? We know that. So again, I don't understand why there's such a big hiccup here. Like it really shouldn't be controversial. Now, part of the reason why it's become controversial is that the mainstream media is so heavily biased. Is that they'll spin anything. They'll spin anything to be like racist and all this kind of stuff. Like they're literally like global news here is literally trying to argue that someone saying this, we must judge people by our actions, not by the color of our skin, is tantamount to white nationalism and hate groups. Like how insane do you have to be to make this statement and what is that? 2 sentences later make that statement. Like I could not think of a more contradictory statement than what they said, but yet here we are, right? So again, on top of all of what I said, it's just another testament to just how bad the mainstream media is, right? So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I said, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.